And you don't take the approach which unfortunately I think our current First Selectman not only believes, but has actually written, which is, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that kind of philosophy, well, it can work, but it always puts you in a reactive mode. And I don't think we can afford to be that way. That's not the way you keep your costs under control. That's not the way you keep our citizens safe and secure for whatever the events that might happen, whether they're emergencies that come out of the blue and kind of scare you, or things that you should have seen coming. They're not surprises. They just seem to take a while to happen. But with planning, with utilizing good communication skills, with all of the great institutions we've got here in Southbury, whether it's Region 15, the ambulance department, the environmental organizations like the Southbury Land Trust, the Pomperaug River Watershed Coalition that we were talking about earlier, the Audubon Center, and all the volunteer organizations that we have, and the Pomperaug Health District, another very important group. All of these bring things together, but only if you have leadership that looks to these different groups, looks to ways to have them work together, not ways that they sort of just go on their own and everybody sort of points fingers at each other. That's the way you build a community. That's the way you collaborate. That's the way you're ready for when things happen, that you're ready for them, they're ready for them, everyone's communicating, as we say, on the same page. So that's the reasons, that's some of the reasons why I'm running. Those of you who might have come to some other events with me know that I say I'm running for 3 particular reasons. The first one is governance, and I think we need a lot more professionalization in the way we run the town. And that's important because of things that have concerned all of us, like keeping our taxes low while at the same time providing good services, if not better services. But we've had a town hall that really hasn't changed much to respond to the changing needs here in Southbury. We're a different community today than we were 20 years ago, and for that matter, 40, 50 years ago. And that means town hall has to change. The second thing about governance or professionalization is we're not giving people adequate supervision. You know, we went through a process 4 years ago to establish employee evaluations. Think about that. We weren't doing employee evaluations before that. Employees went year to year to year, and nobody said, are you doing a good job or you're not doing a good job? So we went through the town hall went through a long, laborious process to get that system set up. And then when last year they decided there weren't going to be any wage increases in order to keep our taxes low, the conclusion of the leaders there were, well, then we don't need to do employee evaluations. Well, I believe employees still need feedback. If you're going to get the most from your employees, you've got to speak to them. Tell them what they're doing well as what they need to do better at. And not just say, well, because I can't give you a wage increase, I don't expect much of you. Because that's the signal that you send when you say, I'm not going to evaluate you. So that's what you learn as a professional running an organization the way I have. And that's what we need in town hall. And the second area is civility. And I think our First Selectman needs to be much more of a leader and kind of setting the tone for how we talk with each other, whether it's institution to institution or individual to individual. We've all seen the coarseness of what's going on the national stage and the kind of language we use or see people use and the way they talk to each other. And most of us are seeing what it does is turn people off from politics. People say, I don't want anything to do with that. Well, my philosophy or my feeling is politics in governance or people involved in government, it's too important. Maybe some of you believe that the private sector can solve all problems. I don't particularly feel that way. I think we need a vital government that's there at all levels in order to make things work, including the private sector. Because if we don't have a viable government that can enforce contracts, enforce regulations so that everybody's on a level playing field, then the private sector will basically not be able to do its job. So it's a partnership. We need both. But if people are so turned off to politics because of the language, they don't want to get involved, we all lose. And that's one of the things I'm really excited about with our campaign, is how we have attracted young people, a number of young people, college graduates, high school students, for that matter, college students, who've come out this summer and said, I want to volunteer. I want to be part of this, because I hear what you're saying, it makes sense, I want to be involved. I hope we can get some more of that as the campaign really now kicks into higher gear after Labor Day is over. but it's something I'm very proud of. And the third area I say is politics. Somebody mentioned this earlier to me that I've got a tough road to hoe in a town that has been dominated by Republicans as far as anyone I've ever been able to speak to can remember, with 1-2 year exception in the early 90s. But if you go back to the 30s, the 20s, it's always been Republicans. And the problem with that is not that some of those people haven't been good leaders, it's that a party in power that long becomes arrogant, begins to feel like they're entitled to that. They don't have to work for it. I always like to remind people, and I think most of you would remember Lily Tomlin, when she used to do her routine as the operator for Ma Bell. And she used to say, when she would get an irate customer, you know, we're from the telephone company, we don't have to care. I think that's what happens with any party when it's in power for too long. And so that's one reason politics is important to me, that we show that Democrats can win. But the other thing, or that another party, let me put it that way, another party other than Republicans can win. And the second thing is that I find more and more Democrats in town who've got good skills, knowledgeable, and want to serve, but don't want to run for an elected position because they say, what's the use? I know I can't win. Look what's been happening here. And as a result, they don't want to go after a competitive race here in Southbury. And that's not good, because we are, as a community, are losing talent. And anytime we don't have the ability to tap into the best talent, we're overall at a disadvantage. As you might know, for town positions, people working for commissions in town hall, we have some protection, what's known as the minority rule. We don't have that protection at the Board of Ed. And that's why I'm very glad to, and I'd like to point out Steve Sirianni, who has stepped up as a parent of, he stepped up to run for the Board of Ed. Now, running for the Board of Ed as a Democrat is very difficult. There is no assurance as a Democrat that you will win. It could be, and historically, there are times when it has been all Republicans. And that is not good, because then people start to protect each other. We saw this last year. For many of us, like myself, people can differ on this, but it seemed to me a very clear case of conflict of interest. We had somebody elected to the Board of Education whose wife works for the Board of Education, works for the school district. Now, many of us think that that's not a good situation when one spouse is supervising another. And to make matters worse, the member on the Board of Ed, he was on the committee to look at personnel policies. So again, that's even putting him closer to overseeing his own wife. And whether or not he does anything to favor his wife or not, the whole idea about conflict of interest is the appearance. And people need to be sharper about that and say, we don't want to do things in a town of this size. Very different when it's small, but a town of this size, you don't do things where the appearance of conflict is so striking. So again, I hope you'll take a chance to meet Steve. He has young children in the school system, been actively involved in Gainfield School, which is somewhere around. A little disoriented. And he's willing to put his hat in the ring, and I'm really proud and very impressed that he's willing to do that. And also very glad, because I've seen what he has done, putting right information in front of people's hands about what our schools actually cost us. I always like that comment that if you think education is expensive, think about what ignorance costs us every day. And we can't afford not to have good quality schools here in Southbury. Personally, it's too important to my property value, but more long range, it's what's too important to having a solid society that's going to take care of me as I get older. And I don't want to use up too much of my time up here. I've never run before. So getting up in front of a group is not something I'm used to doing, but I see that now. I guess I'm in my third month. I go on and on and on and on. And my wife wasn't able to be here today. She had to take our children to help them get back to Virginia, but she's usually out there doing this. She's not there, so somebody else might have to do that. But I also want to draw special attention to a couple of other people. Ron Pugliese is also running as selectman. Ron lives over here in the village. encourage you to introduce yourself to Ron or vice versa. A very interesting background, and I think a lot of great skills that he would bring to the Board of Selectmen. I've got scattered throughout here a couple of people who are helping out in the campaign, who've been volunteering. Art obviously has been heavily involved in promoting my campaign and helping me out here in the village. Lorraine over here, I see Joyce, I'm sure Fred is somewhere, hiding behind the left field stands or something. And but I also want to pay special tribute to Gosha over there with the camera. Let's see if we can make it turn red. And again, you know, one of the thrilling things of running a campaign is when people come and say, how can I help? That's thrilling. And then when you see what kinds of capabilities are out there and what people can do, it really is gratifying. Gosha has done phenomenal things with not only our website, but more importantly, has grabbed onto this idea that video is a tool that is extremely effective for communicating. She has produced already, I guess, 3 different videos for the campaign, as well as tape all of our press conferences. There's probably 4 videos. Press conferences, picnics, and the caucus. And I think each one of them has shown a lot of talent. We've brought several of them are available on the laptop here. So I encourage you to come over here, take a look at them. If you haven't seen them online, all of them are available on our website. And so please take one of our folders over here or one of our cards over here that has the website. If any of your children have forced you to get on Facebook like mine did, I encourage you to go to our Facebook page and keep track of the campaign that way. And for all the rest of you who are using Twitter, we try to tweet whenever we can. So I'm sure you're all doing that all the time, first thing when you wake up in the morning. But there is a sign-up sheet here. So if you're interested in staying involved with our campaign, please sign up. As well as there's a form here, take that home with you. It's 10 ways that you can help the campaign. And believe it or not, this is going to come as a shock to many of you. One of those things is to make a contribution. So I'd encourage you to think about a financial contribution. We know the Republicans here in town easily can raise money, or very easily they can raise money. They have lots of connections to the business community, to the old families that have been a part of Southbury for a long, long time. We don't have those connections. We got off to a very fast start with our first month of fundraising, but now we need more people to come to the table, whether it's $25, $50. You want to go to the maximum of $1,000, we will let you do that. But please think about making a financial contribution either by check or you can do that online with a credit card if that's easier. So again, thank you all for coming out. I look forward to introducing myself, and please, if you have any questions, or for that matter, any suggestions, this is a learning process for me, so don't think of it as that I don't come to this believing I have all of the answers. Trust me. What I do believe I have is the ability to listen and bring together all of the great people here in Southbury to make it advance and become a better community than it is today. So thank you again for coming, and enjoy.
Thanks, Ed. Just a couple of things. One is coming attractions. On September 15th, Ed will be here again. That's Thursday at 10 o'clock in the music room here. And flesh out the already fleshy program that he has. And also, as we know from the weather we've been having, all politics is local. And this is not a year to ignore a town campaign. The best way for us to win is to get our vote out. And so don't forget that part and stay involved, not just today, but for the rest of the campaign.